So I'm looking at Tzora for exploring some nature-y. It's a little residential area, not far from where I live, but it's really pretty with the grass, trees, and greenery in general. So I'm going to see if I get some interesting photos in this area. I happen to like this little roundabout over here. There's a lot of different structures and shapes. I'll see if I can make some interesting compositions here. These little bushes over here, the orangey flowers. It's very peaceful. The gentle breezes and the way the lavender is lit up with the sun behind it. Right around the bend from that very naturey green area, we have this really old shed. It's very cool, and I'm a big fan of wabi-sabi, so this is definitely going to catch my attention. Get a few pictures of this also. This angle right here is actually pretty cool. We're seeing the width and length of this shack. I'm probably going to come in closer and try some different angles as well. So these photos were taking a few seconds apart, but because of a few differences in the focus and the lighting, there's a big difference for me between the two of them. I prefer the one on the left because of those two factors. First of all, the texture makes it more interesting to the eye, and we have very strong, bright areas focused on that over here, and top to bottom as well. So there's a whole bunch of little areas that attract the eye to the foreground, versus over here, this whole plane is very much the same color, very plain if you would, and it's also not in focus. So between these two pictures, that's why I prefer the one on the left. I have to say there's a real dramatic difference based on whether the sun is behind the clouds or when it comes out. The shadows just become that much more pronounced. And there's different shapes up here actually also that weren't there before. Let's watch this, what happens. Look at that. So on the right side, there wasn't that bar showing up there before, but because there's this, I guess, old scaffolding or whatever it is over here, so now it's showing up, thanks to the sunlight. And as it goes behind the cloud, goes away again. So it's important to not rush by scenes sometimes, because this lighting will change the effect very dramatically. What I like about all these little areas is that each place has like little different flowers that were set out over here versus the other areas. There's a lot of time and effort went into designing this area, and it's really appreciated. So nice. So this area on its own doesn't mean, like the composition area with the cars in the background and whatnot, I don't see so much of a picture offhand, but if I take out my zoom lens, I can come in here and focus on certain compositional areas that might be more interesting. For example, if I come around to this angle, I can try to compress and put together the flowers in the foreground and have the yellower flowers in the background blurred out. There's also a big difference when you're shooting when the flowers are in shadow or if they're being directly hit by the sun, just like we saw in that building. So if they're in shadow, it's a much more muted, the values are a bit more similar, but when you're sun, then they're much more dramatic lighting. The shadows are much stronger and deeper. Also, something I'm noticing, that standing where I am by this bunch of flowers, in the background we have that, it might be for milk distribution or something like that. Anyway, but using my zoom lens, I can put the flowers here in the foreground and create this nice multi-layered effect where we have the blurred out flowers in the foreground, creating more interest for the structures in the background. As I get closer to these, we'll say milk distribution, whatever these are, Let's see if I can get actually a photo where just shooting with them in the foreground. Here, I actually like how there's that very strong sunlight coming from behind, giving a little bit of rim lighting to these dark containers, and also casting these very interesting shadows in the foreground. So altogether, I think it makes a much more interesting photo than if it was overcast here and we didn't have all this dramatic lighting. I came across this very interesting chair with the coffee mug sitting on it. I thought it'd be a very interesting subject for a composition. And I see that in the background we have this old cabin. So I figured I'd try to put these two things together and come down to an angle sort of like here. The thing is, I didn't want those bright discarded bottles taking from the distracting from the picture, so I tried to maneuver the chair leg so it sort of blocks it like this. Similarly, coming around, getting a little closer to this old shack. So I like the composition here, but I'm going to move a little bit to, there's that green packaging, I don't know, on the far, right over there. So I'm going to shift my angle just a little bit to over here and let the tree block it as much as possible. So if I go like this, so a slightly different angle, but close enough, and now I don't have that green distracting. One of the things that this area is known for is the winery. So this is actually the entrance. I don't know if it's open right now, but we're going to find out. I get a few pictures in this area too. This looks like a very nice area to spend the morning having some wine and other things. I see some people doing that. Look how pleasant this looks like just to hang out here. Love the colorful chairs. So while I was shooting at the winery, a couple came and sat down, and they were sitting exactly in a spot that looked just really, really picturesque. So I went over to them and asked if I could maybe get photos of them. Originally, they weren't so interested about it, but then we got to talking and I explained what I was doing just in the area, and they said, okay, yeah, take a few shots. And I showed them also some pictures I had taken up until then, so maybe that also was a factor. In any case, they agreed I'd take a few photos of them, so I started from the original angle I'd seen from between the vine branches, and then I sort of worked my way around trying to find some different angles of them. The one thing that was most problematic was that the sunlight was creating a dappled effect on the man's face, and so that was a little bit more, I didn't like the effect of that so much, but at the same time I wasn't trying to interfere with them, and they're having some wine, so I didn't really ask them to change anything. Nonetheless, they seemed to be pretty okay with the photos, and I sent them to them. So that was a nice interaction we had over there. And if you've enjoyed this, then check out my book, Composition Techniques to Create Compelling Photos. Chock full of examples and practical exercises, you'll learn how you can take your photography from good to great. It's available both as a paperback and digital download on Amazon. I'll leave links in the description below. Thanks again so much for watching, and I look forward to reading your comments and seeing you in another video.